A little while ago, I got an email, or rather 6 emails, from the same company called Aeroband trying to get me to advertise their product, the aeroguitar. According to them, the aeroguitar was a new way for people to learn to play guitar with innovative technology such as silicone strings to reduce finger pain. Immediately when I saw what it was, I told them that I do not think it's a viable alternative for anybody who wants to learn how to play a guitar unless they have some kind of disability like arthritis or whatever, which is not how they market it. And especially for, say, a beginner who wants to eventually move up to a real guitar, that's going to feel like barbed wire. And what I found especially awful was the price tag of $459 US. Now, after that rejection, they proceeded to send me the same email prompt 5 more times, 4 of which I told them to go pound sand like the first time, and the 6th time, I gave in. And I said, fine, send me your aero guitar or whatever, but it's fully at your own risk. There is no guarantee that I'm making a video about it to begin with, and if I do, it's likely not going to be in your favor. Fast forward a week, and there's an aero guitar at my doorstep. Now, this actually made me think that it can't be as bad as I thought it would be, because nobody who isn't confident in the quality of their product was going to do that. And you know what? I was right. It's not nearly as bad as I thought. It is infinitely worse than I even could have imagined. I hereby hatefully present to you the aeroguitar. Now, I'll get to a lot more talking points in a second, but for the time being, let's turn it on.
Audio connect.
Right, so it comes with some aeroband branded picks, so let's just strum a G chord real quick. Oh, there you go, it already registered a note that I didn't play. Isn't that a good sign? Hey, I just need 1 second of your time to talk to you about something that isn't crap. You know what isn't crap? This Walrus Audio fundamental drive pedal isn't crap. In fact, it's very, very good. And I happen to know that the next few people who go through the link in my description or to shop.sixstring.tv and buy one of my inspirational Donut Man t-shirts, which are currently on sale for €17 a piece, not only get to look sharp as hell with their brand new and very limited Sixstring TV merch, but also enter a raffle to win one of these pedals. Not this one though, this one's mine. Link in description, and thank you to Walrus Audio for the help. So, time to tear it a new one. What does this hateful piece of garbage actually do? Well, besides constantly registering notes that aren't being played, you might have noticed that this fretboard, quote unquote, looks a little bit two-dimensional. And that's because it is. Because what they've generously described as innovative silicone string technology is 6 kind of string fragments down here for you to pick that constantly register open strings even though you're not strumming them, and 6 kind of semicircle shaped silicone strips of the same thickness glued to the plastic fretboard. Meaning that yes, obviously bends on this thing are out of the question. And if you were wondering why I took sort of a Marty Friedman approach to playing it earlier, it is because this thing that is held on here by some magnets apparently has sensors in it that not only register every rest of your palm on top of it as a palm mute, as opposed to, you know, with a real guitar, a palm mute would be your palm resting on the strings and not on the bridge, which is where it's supposed to go. But also, these sensors have a tendency to malfunction and register everything as a palm mute whenever this cover is placed on top of the bridge, which it is supposed to be, because these here are the sensors that actually register the playing, so your hand on top of that would be detrimental. Case in point, open, palm muted. I don't feel like I need to say this again, but I'm going to anyway. $459 US. Oh, but if you thought the agony ends here, my friend, then you are dead wrong, because this is only the beginning. Because what I am reluctant to call the headstock on this guitar has 3 buttons on it. Now let's get to the 2 round ones first, those ones being the capo minus and capo plus buttons. Now you might think, oh, that's kind of cool, because obviously I can't place a real capo on these rubber strings, that would just endlessly register it as that note being played. So let's place our virtual capo somewhere. Now the indicator of where the capo is supposed to be will be these LED side dots, so let's just click it 3 times. That should be a capo on the 3rd fret. So now with a capo on the 3rd fret, that means that these notes shouldn't register at all, right? Apparently I was wrong about that. Excuse me, and I've only been playing for a couple of years. I'm not really sure how the whole capo business works yet. My bad. But there is also a tone button up here, which switches between like 3, 4, 5 or so tones that each individually sound like they were made in the 70s when synthesizers were just invented. Now, by now you've probably caught on to how imprecisely it registers these notes and therefore how poorly it would perform as, say, a MIDI controller. Well, that apparently is one of the selling points of this guitar, which is weird because they simultaneously sell it as a tool for someone who's never held a guitar in their lives to learn to play it, but also as a tool to program MIDI with, which would make it a professional tool. And I sadly have to inform you that it is no good for either of those applications, especially not for that money. You want a MIDI guitar? Buy a jammy. Buy a jam stick. The jam stick is a little more expensive than the jammy, but that's because what you get is not just a MIDI controller, but an actual guitar that you can plug into an amp as well, as opposed to, the jammy, which is just for MIDI, but it costs about as much as this thing and actually works, has actual strings, and is actually usable as a MIDI guitar. But the Aero guitar does come with stickers. Better not waste these. There you go, now I'm a rock star. This is, of course, not the Aero guitar's only groundbreaking feature, though. It also does this, so it fits in the bin easier. Now, all of that aside, one of the things that immediately set off alarm bells in my head was the fact that this is a Kickstarter company. The Aero guitar isn't technically on the market yet. It's still in its crowdfunding stage, and they are already enlisting YouTubers to promote it. And that is one thing that I'm never going to agree to in my life, because look at the Boaz 1 guitar. You'll recognize that name if you keep up with guitar news, because that was a fucking travesty of a Kickstarter campaign. And while even public companies that already have products on the shelves at big box stores doing scandalous things is nothing new, you're making yourself especially vulnerable to becoming the guy who advertised the next big Kickstarter scandal by accepting these kinds of advertising campaigns. Now, that is by no means accusing Aeroband of anything, because as you can see, their product is very real, it just shouldn't be. Still, advertising a product that's still in its crowdfunding stage is... And there is one more thing that I would like to compare the Aero guitar to, which is this. This is genuinely just my toy guitar from my childhood. I got this when I was like 4 or 5 years old. For some reason, it's just remained in our possession ever since. And I'm actually quite happy about that now, because it takes a similar approach as the Aero guitar, except it does that for like 15 bucks at Walmart. Now, tragically, I can't turn it on for you because it's had the acid of about 40 batteries in it over the course of the past 15 years. But as you can see, the approach is very similar. It's got metal strings down here for strumming and buttons here for playing notes. And if I recall correctly from my very early childhood, this button here would have the exact same function as the tone button on the Aero guitar, in that it would switch between several early 80s MIDI-sounding guitar tones, each marginally worse than the last. Except this is a toy from like 2007, and back then cost like, I don't know, probably 20 bucks. And this abomination was created in 2023 and costs $460. And I haven't even gotten to Aero Guitar's own ads for this thing yet, some of which genuinely feature real guitar audio dubbed over top of this thing, because they are so aware that what they've created is landfill with a crappy speaker inside.
I'll gladly remember the river, you and I sailing on a boat.
The aeroguitar is a smart instrument. It will help you build good habits which will play a real guitar.
This video could have just been me playing back those ads to you and you would have gotten the gist of it. Now, objectively, the worst part about this guitar is just the way that they advertise it. On their Instagram page, there are a few videos like I have arthritis and my stepmom got me an aero guitar. And if you do have some sort of ailment that makes this piece of crap the only way you can musically express yourself because you can't press down on a metal string on a real guitar hard enough to actually create notes, then you know what? Fine. But that's not how they are advertising it. They are advertising it as something that you should get a novice guitar player before actually getting them a real instrument, as though using a real guitar after however long of using this thing wouldn't set them straight back to square one. If this was $140 to $160 and being advertised as a children's toy, it would be amazing. Because you know just as well as I do that as a 5 or 6-year-old with no intention of creating real music and just playing with a toy, you would have been stoked to get this thing. But no parents are buying this for their child for $500. Because if you were born into such wealth that you had $500 toys around the house as a kid, this is not up to standard for that price. So they could have done the smart thing and said, we have made a children's toy that might eventually spark interest in actual instruments for a small, tiny toddler child, which I am convinced would work because there is ample evidence of me as a child playing with various toy guitars, and I am now a real guitar player. But with this garbage product that doesn't even have a speaker powerful enough that it won't crackle and distort when playing back its own audio, I genuinely think that you are better off just playing Guitar Hero. So if anybody at Aeroband happens to be watching this, I'm very sorry, but this is completely on you.